Hello, I'm Jared Taylor with American Renaissance. Paul Joseph Watson is one of YouTube's most popular commentators. He recently made a video called The Collapse of Western Civilization that has been very successful. Mr. Watson gets a lot right in that video, but he leaves out something vitally important, the role of race. Mr. Watson is right to say that great civilizations die by suicide and not because they're conquered, and that there are many signs that Western civilization is exhausted. Drug overdoses, low birth rates, alcoholism, these are all ominous signs, and whites seem to be uniquely susceptible. Mr. Watson suggests a, quote, lack of a transcendent purpose as the source of despair in the West. And it's true that many people think of themselves only as individuals and not as part of anything greater than themselves. Mr. Watson is also right to say that the West has lost its nerve.
We live in the ruins of a civilization that has lost faith in itself. A civilization that is constantly lectured it must be ashamed of itself and slowly subverted and destroyed from within as the only form of repentance.
Mr. Watson criticizes churches for failing to lead, and he recognizes something conservatives don't, namely that so-called free markets are not a panacea.
Where are conservatives in all this? Giving giant corporations huge tax breaks so they can import vast quantities of people from the third world and then pay them slave wages, while white Americans addicted to opioids live lives of atomized, nihilistic hopelessness. Is that conservatism? At this point, what exactly are we conserving?
Mr. Watson warns that Western populations are being replaced by robots and a third world slave class. Muslims, he says, at least defend their traditional values, while Westerners swallow worthless pop culture and consumer junk. This is all true. So what is the source of the problem?
We've abandoned the Enlightenment values that built Western civilization.
Here I disagree. First, Western civilization was built long before the Enlightenment. It's older than Christianity. The West stretches back to the ancient world, from the temples of Greece to the engineering marvels of Rome. The Enlightenment contributed a great deal to the West, but it also started the abandonment of Christianity that Mr. Watson says is part of the problem.
We collectively killed God.
The Enlightenment drove Christianity out of the very center of our civilization. For 1,000 years, the faith was Europe, and Europe was the faith. The West, without Christianity, is a different place, but it is still our place, our home. Mr. Watson notes other problems.
We labor under an economic and political system that has abandoned us.
But who is us? Everyone living in the West, including millions of Muslims, the entire world? China isn't plagued by self-doubt, nor are the millions of non-whites pouring triumphantly into our countries. In America, it's specifically whites who are being struck down by overdoses, alcoholism, and suicide. As Steve Saylor explains, white people in America are behaving more and more like American Indians have, as a defeated and despairing race. Well, can this be a surprise? Every day, whites hear that their history is shameful and criminal. For example, Plymouth Rock used to be a proud symbol of the founding of our country. Now, the town of Plymouth has put up a memorial called National Day of Mourning, telling us that the arrival of the Pilgrims was the beginning of genocide of the Indians and of racism and oppression that continue to this day. Every day, whites are insulted. Here is a black woman explaining that all white people are racist. So we can try to make up for it by sending money to her PayPal account. And if you dare to resist the idea that you are constantly, unconsciously oppressing non-whites, then there's a whole book to explain to you that you are not only racist, but you suffer from white fragility. And remember Sarah Jong. She is now on the editorial board of the New York Times, about the most prestigious place a journalist can be, despite tweeting things like, White people have stopped breeding. You'll all go extinct soon. This was my plan all along. Now, what does it say to whites when people like her are in positions of authority? So, what's the solution? According to Mr. Watson, there is no solution. He thinks the collapse of our civilization is overdue. Wrong. Our civilization is dying because we can't even admit that it's ours, that white people built it. Western civilization is white civilization, and it is dying because the people who created it and who alone can sustain it have lost their nerve. Without racial identity, our civilization really would be doomed. That's because it was built by our ancestors, people of our race. And if we abandon our homelands to people of other races, they will not, they cannot save our civilization for us. Racial identity fortifies your sense of attachment to your community, your obligations to your ancestors, and your duties to your children. Here you see Bernini's sculpture of Aeneas carrying his father and leading his son from the burning ruins of Troy. 3 generations of love and faithfulness. It's actually many more generations. Do you see what Aeneas' father is carrying? It's called the Penates. These are the household gods and represent all ancestors. That is to say, countless generations of love and faithfulness. This is your heritage. And with love and faithfulness, we can be worthy heirs to what we have inherited and leave even greater treasures to those who come after us. Racial identity is also a powerful antidote to nihilism and despair. It reminds you that you are part of something vastly larger than yourself, that you have a glorious heritage. Racial identity means you are a link in the chain that goes back to the very beginnings of your people. A people without a sense of race, of identity, is not a people at all. And a person without an identity is just a consumer. Unlike Mr. Watson, I believe the West can be saved, that we will make it great again. Western men, white men, will muster the courage to defend their identity, their nations, their people, and their civilization. We built the West. We will save it. It will die only if we let it. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. And come take a look at our podcast channel on YouTube at Amren Podcasts. And please visit our webpage. That's amren.com, AMREN.com.